While it may seem like the effects of the border crisis are limited to border states like Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico, a new report by the Heritage Foundation shows the border crisis is having a far greater effect on the rest of the country. Through tracking the use of cell phone data, the report's authors found migrants have been placed in virtually every congressional district in the United States. Mike Howell, director of the Oversight Project at the Heritage Foundation, joins us now with more on the findings. Hi, Mike. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So what exactly is this project that you're working on at Heritage?
Right. So I'm the director of the Oversight Project here at Heritage, which is basically the investigative arm of the Heritage Foundation and the conservative right. What we do is a lot of fact-finding intelligence reports. We have a pretty sophisticated legal apparatus whereby we're suing on a lot of information requests of the federal government. The idea is to arm policymakers and the public with as much raw intelligence as it possibly can.
What I'm most specifically interested in this evening is this report that you did with the cell phone data.
Absolutely. So last week, we released the first of its kind report on the movement of illegal aliens from the border to the interior of the country. We tracked them by purchasing bulk cell phone data, anonymized, of course. And then we did what is called geofencing, meaning restricting the geographic area from which we were looking at the devices. And we did that to about 30 nonprofit facilities at the border, which we knew were involved in the facilitation of illegal immigration. And so from those 30 plus locations, we tracked the movement of cell phones from them to the interior of the country. And what we found is that illegal aliens are going to virtually every single district in the mainland United States. And keep in mind, this is a relatively small sample size of 30,000 devices. To date, in the Biden administration, well over 5 million illegal aliens have crossed the border. So you can imagine what that data would look like.
So you buy the cell phone data that is going from these NGOs on both sides of the border and then follow that data throughout the country?
Well, we bought the data at the border. And so it's when an individual crosses the border and goes into a NGO facility. It's from that point we track the data to the interior of the country. So not south of the border.
So why are there so many NGOs facilitating the transfer of illegal immigrants?
Right. So this is a vast network of organizations that apply for and receive a lot of federal government money, mostly via grants. So there's incentive involved in this. There's also a political and ideological incentive for a lot of these groups that favor mass immigration and resettlement into the interior. A lot of these groups are involved in work outside of the border, getting people to the U.S., and also play roles internationally. A lot of the big migration waves that happened in Germany and France were aided and abetted by these non-governmental organizations. There's a lot of money behind it. This is one of the chief pet projects of the Open Society Foundation, run by George Soros.
Okay, so if you could thread the needle there, why would George Soros and Open Society want the illegal immigrants to come across the border and be disbanded all across the United States? What is the incentive there? What is the incentive? Why are we seeing this happen?
So the open borders radical left essentially believes that the West is a bad thing, that nation states are a bad thing, and that the best way to introduce a Marxist society is to flood established countries with large amounts of people to form a class to overthrow the established order. And so that's basically the ideological push, main drivers and donors to this. There's also a political benefit. Democrats are on record praising the rapid immigration and the corresponding demographic changes and political changes that accompany them. This is something that Joe Biden has spoken, favorably of. And it's basically the party line on the left is that, hey, look, this country's going to look a lot differently in 50 years, and that's going to mean we're going to win more elections. And so we're going to make this country change as much as possible.
With Title 42, more people than ever lining up at the border in the past couple of days, what do you foresee happening?
Oh, it's going to make a huge difference. I mean, right now, the border's patient on getting rid of Title 42 is just pulling the cord. It's our last line of defense. There is no reason anybody would take away Title 40. They wanted to make things at the border. And so that's exactly what's going to happen. I've had large facilities in Mexico are basically that have been housing lots of people are opening up the facilities and pushing large caravans to the southern border. Word is out that now's the time to get in if you ever had trouble before. And so people are going to take advantage of it. They respond to these changes in policies at the border.
So when an illegal immigrant crosses the border, what is the process at this point?
So at this point, basically an illegal alien turns themselves into Border Patrol because they know Border Patrol is going to just transfer them to a nonprofit. So it used to be the case, many years ago where illegal aliens, the behavior was they'd run away from Border Patrol. Well, now they run towards Border Patrol. All that being said, there's two categories, right? There's the people who cross and get quote unquote caught or turn themselves in. But then there's this other category called gotaways. These are people that we pick up based off technology that are crossing the border and that just don't want to get touched by Border Patrol. They don't want to get fingerprinted. They don't want the databases checked. And so that's where the really worst of the worst are coming across. And that number's huge. It's over 1 million so far in this administration.
One thing that I've seen or have not seen is a lot of media coverage over the past year. There have been a few reporters down there, and only in the past couple of days have I seen any significant coverage in terms of New York Times having the one photo on the front page. Why is this story being ignored by the media, in your opinion?
Right. Well, because they're not media, frankly. They're just, puppets of the administration and the regime. They're their messaging operation. At the very worst, they view the border crisis as something unfortunate that happened to Biden that he is, expertly dealing with. That's what they truly, tell people is what's happening. They don't view it for what it is, in that it's a purposefully caused and planned and organized crisis. And that's what we show in our report. You don't just, set up sprawling networks of NGOs to move millions of people around the country by accident. This is by design. And the media just refuses, to cover Biden in any light that's negative. And so it's really unfortunate because this is, in my opinion, probably the worst example in United States history. I don't think there's anything worse than the president basically giving up our territorial sovereignty. In my view, breaking his oath to the Constitution, many laws along the way, to put this country in serious danger and jeopardy, all for a political benefit, which is, changing the electorate. This is betrayal. It is something that I don't think our founders ever envisioned. There would be a commander-in-chief who would just give up the farm like that and refuse to do his own duties. It's honestly something that the system's not built to deal with right now. And so we're in really, really dangerous.
Is there anything that can be done at this point in terms of when you come back? Well, when the House comes back in January, will anybody be called? And do you call Mayorkas? And does he get impeached? And does that change anything?
Well, you certainly have to impeach him. And you have to do that because it's your duty as a member of Congress to uphold your oath to the Constitution. And when someone in power is violating their oath, your duty is to get them out of there. And so that's a non-negotiable starting point. What's really concerning to me now is the swamp is debating a huge funding bill that'll fund the Biden administration through next year and deep into the year. And so you lack the ability to leverage changes of the administration if you cannot withhold funding. So, for example, what I would like to see is any money going to DHS has to be conditioned on the policies changing. You defund giving money to these NGOs to carry out these policies. But right now, and the thick of leading up to Christmas, a lot of Republican senators, especially Richard Shelby from Alabama, they're more interested in just slapping support projects to get buildings in Alabama named after him than they are in securing the border.
I don't think a lot of people know what they're giving their money to with NGOs. You have a lot of people out there giving to Catholic charities, and I don't think they really understand where their money is going towards.
Done in their name and with their dollars. I've been telling everyone I know, do not donate to Catholic charities. They do some good work, sure. But if your dollar's going towards basically flag of a human smuggling operation, that's no good. That should not be allowed. The trauma, pain, and abuse that occurs on the way to the border, because the cartels know if they just drop you off there, that the NGOs will pick you up. That's awful. You don't want your dollars being done, and especially not in the name of the church. I mean, this is just the political takeover of some of these organizations and the ideological weaponization It's, the left does damage and ruins virtually everything it touches. And we're seeing that in these charities.
Well, for people who don't really understand what is happening at the border, and maybe they're not following it as closely as we may be following it, how would you simply explain to someone what is going on and what they can do about it, or voice their concern?
Right. So I would explain this as what's happening at the border affects every aspect of American life, whether it's your wait time at the emergency room, your cost of healthcare because you're subsidizing millions of illegal aliens, whether it's you're being overcrowded with new arrivals of people who illegally immigrated, whether it's your tax dollars going towards welfare, whether it's your political voice being drowned out by new arrivals who broke our laws, everybody, wherever you are in the country. And what you should do about it is demand a change in your leadership in Washington. It's almost a uniparty issue with a lot of the decisions being made. No one's taking this as seriously as in terms of demanding changes in the immediate, and sure that when you speak to people who are in a position of power, this is the top priority. Nothing gets solved if the border's wide open. And it's also changing your, donation behavior. It's Christmas season. There are a lot of organizations out there that do great work. Don't donate to ones that, are basically on the receiving end of the cartel's drop off.
Where can people find your reports and your information so they can learn for themselves?
So we got a website at heritage.org where we house all of our reports and writings. We write a lot on this topic. If you're on Twitter, you can follow us at Heritage. And I'm at M. Howell Tweets.
Great. Well, thank you, Mike, so much for joining us today. I appreciate your help and helping us understand this very difficult issue.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.